first meeting tonight. We'll turn it over to Public Works.
Good evening. First item is the consideration of change in the Public Works Committee to enable the mayor and chairman of the CAP committee serve as ex officio members of Public Works and Safety, Public Works Committee and Water Supply. Let y'all talk about that.
Do you want me to explain that, Mayor?
Yeah, the Public Works Committee is changing the name to where we can have a representative on the Commission of Public Works. So it'll be, what's going to be the new name? Public Works and
Committee on Water Supply.
Committee on Water Supply. And that way, after the population of the town reaches 50,000, we get to have two members on the CPW, and the mayor is automatically one, and the other one is the chairman of the Public Works Committee. So that's why we're changing that name, and that'll take effect in January, the 1st of January. So that's what that's about.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
I noticed that these two people would come on as ex officio members. So they won't have the voting power as the three now.
They do have the voting power.
They
Yes,
do
sir.
that.
Right.
Ex officio simply means that they didn't run for the office.
That's right.
Okay.
I guess that's what ex officio means in this case, but they do have the voting powers. Isn't that correct, Mr.
Yeah.
Parker?
They are voting members. Yes, sir.
Any
So
other-
the ordinance for this will be on the council agenda for Wednesday night.
Yeah,
So we don't need to make a motion.
yeah. So it'll be on the council agenda, like Lisa said, for Wednesday night for a motion. And that's when we can take action on this on Wednesday night. Any other questions on that for us?
All right, next item.
Next two items are traffic related, so I'm gonna turn it over to AJ to talk about that and present to you what our plans are there.
This is at the intersection of Gulf Road and Spring Road and 17A. Mr. Bailey and I had met out there and talked about some possible improvements we could do at this intersection, just based on the way that it's an interesting alignment. So what we're gonna do is put some striping sort of in this where that intersection, where Gulf Road and Spring Road sort of come to a T there. And some delineators to prevent vehicles, because what happens is instead of actually taking a right turn onto Gulf Road, vehicles kind of basically shoot off 17A onto Gulf Road and kind of cut off vehicles on Spring Road. So Spring Road, you can't get up close to that intersection. So we're gonna stripe it and put some delineators in that paved area going up to the travel way, and that'll sort of force vehicles to actually slow down, put on their blinker and turn right onto Gulf Road, and then it'll allow us to move the stop bar up onto Spring Road and sort of improve the sight distance for vehicles approaching from the left there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there'll be striping with a curb around the striping, is that correct?
Yeah, with not a concrete curb, the delineator, the curb delineator system is sort of a it's like it's plastic, it's material.
Composite material with the curb system with the layers on top of it, so it'll be very noticeable.
Mhm.
If somebody hits it, they'll feel it pretty good too.
Okay. Yeah, that is probably the only solution available for that.
Mhm.
and it is a pretty dangerous intersection because I have to go out there every day. AJ, how far out from the existing stop line is the new line going to be?
From on Spring Road, the existing stop sign to
The white stripe that tells you
oh,
how far out you can get.
the stop bar is going to be 10 foot from the edge of 17A.
Okay. How far out, how much further is it going to be than the existing stripe?
That'll give us, I want to say it was about another 10 feet.
Okay.
Yeah. Pretty big. Pretty
Yeah,
big
the
shift.
only, hopefully the striping and all that will make it safer, but my only concern is that it might give somebody a false sense of security if they pull out of that line and somebody is used to making that turn at 50 miles an hour. And
Yeah, well, hopefully
what's happening is that people are taking the turn, they're cutting across the stop line.
right.
So if you pull out to where you can see to your left,
Right.
you're in the middle of the turn lanes.
So those delineators will prevent if a vehicle is going to do that, if a vehicle is stopped at that stop line and a vehicle wants to turn right onto Gulf Road, those delineators will basically be in their path. So they wouldn't be able to do that.
Thank you.
I've got a couple questions. I think at one time we actually talked about if we made one of these roads a one-way,
Yeah.
and was that decided that this was a better plan?
I believe we looked at a one-way here. Think we had talked about possibly shutting off this access at Gulf Road here and creating a new road a little bit further down the line, but that seemed not quite feasible. But no, I personally didn't look at a one-way, turning any of these into a one-way.
Okay, yeah, what we talked about doing initially was that we thought the town had a right of way to a strip of land that was that would have connected Golf Road with 17A and could have had traffic exit one way out of that, as opposed to going out there to this intersection where Spring Road meets them. We found out that we did not have a right of way there. It had not, we couldn't find any evidence that had been dedicated to the town.
Okay, yeah.
What I was thinking is a piece of property on the end of the right-hand side of Golf Road that's for sale, and there's a triangle sticking out there that where you might be able to either condemn part of that to make Golf Road have their exit and Spring Road have their exit and not have this cluster that we've got now. But I think you told me the highway department might not recommend that.
I'm not sure they'd be open to that.
I'm sorry.
I'm not sure they'd be open to that. We went ahead and went through the permitting process for this little project and have the permit for this ready to go. So they did approve this.
And how much would this cost us?
I'm not sure.
We can do it all in-house. So we have the thermo machine, we have the delineator. So nothing really.
And one more question. Wasn't this where there was a really bad car accident last week? And one of the cars caught on fire? Okay.
Yeah, a car ran off the right-hand side of left-hand side going out of town off of 17A, and I think there was a hit and run and ran through a couple of yards. And then I'm not sure if that was in
Well,
the
I-
same spot but across the
Okay,
street.
I was just hoping that if this is something that we would do, would it help that? Being able to see, making the turns, especially if someone's going straight and either someone's coming out, that it would prevent that from happening again.
It's not going to help, coming out of Spring Road, it's not going to help you see any better. It's just hopefully going to let you get further out where you can see it. But the line of sight is still poor to your left.
Well, I'm in agreement with doing this, and then we can, see how it goes over the next several months and then come back and address it again if we need to. Do we need a
I'll
motion?
make a motion that we approve it.
Okay, got a first.
Got a
and
motion
second.
on the floor that we approve this. And a second. Any further discussion? Oh, y'all doing a committee. Yeah, okay, excuse me.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
All right.
Okay. All right. And we have one more item.
Yeah, we were gonna
Oh.
talk about the stop sign criteria as a traffic calming again. I think we brought that up the last meeting and wanted to sort of bring that back to your attention as something we would like to consider implementing into our traffic calming policy. I'm not sure if you all had a chance to look over some of the criteria we wanted to add or had any questions or comments.
I know I had read it
Why?
a while back. Is it attached to our package?
If it's not, I have it right here.
Mr. Chairman, if I might just ask a question after having glanced at that, is there any reason or need for us to change what we have? It worked so far.
Well, we don't, there's really no criteria for a stop sign as traffic calming, as a traffic calming measure. So we would like to sort of implement something to have some sort of, guidelines on what would be eligible for a stop sign, as opposed to, just throwing them up at any given location. Just to sort of, it would just sort of give us something to go off of to work with.
Well,
Because right now there's nothing for a stop sign.
I mean, I personally like where we are because it appears to me as though we're trying to restrict to some degree what council may or may not want to do. And I see no need for it. But I'm not a voting member of this group.
Well, I am a voting member of this group and I agree with everything that Councilman Jenkins just said. I think the criteria for stop signs is if it's the will of council. If it's not the will of the council, there's no stop sign. If it is the will of council, there's a stop sign.
I agree also, for the additional reason that every situation is unique and it may not fit exactly within the criteria you set out here. I think it ought to be decided by council on a case-by-case basis.
And I will echo all those concerns. I like having this, and we can look back to it as reference, but I do feel every circumstance is different and that we should vote on each thing separate. Is there anything else? Any of the members of this committee? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
A second.
All right, all in adjournment? Aye.
Excuse me. Ms. Rhonda,
Good evening, Mayor Waring and members of council. I'd like to present the October 2021 financial report. The first page you have is a summary. It has the revenue and expenses. I would like to point out, you probably noticed, there's a typographical error under miscellaneous revenues for the month rather than 69,000. It's 48,500. Which brings our total revenues to 717,248. Expenses for the month are 2,779,942. Our expenses exceeded our revenues by 2,062,695 with that adjustment. I'd like to point out a couple of items and then we'll go through the revenues. There was a larger expenditure in building and grounds. That was expense for records conversion that was approved by council in 2020. Property taxes for the month totaled 178,295.55. Year-to-date, 889, 613.61. We are a third way through the fiscal year. Of course, the budgeted amounts for property taxes are significantly more than what we've collected thus far. We collect majority of our property taxes in December, January, and February. That will catch up at that point. Licenses, permits, and fees collected in October, 262,946.57. Year-to-date, 2,761,633.29. Court fines and fees, $27,018. Year-to-date, $115,698.87. State revenues, $200,464.75 collected for the month. Year-to-date, $886,744.92. Miscellaneous revenues, this is where my error had occurred. Total for the month is $48,522.81. Year-to-date, $267,943.84. Any questions on that section? Like the for impact fees, we've collected $13,620 in October for residential impact fees. Year-to-date, $49,956.40. Commercial impact fees, $19,158 for October, $40,069.08 year-to-date. No expenses related to those impact fees in October. Local hospitality tax, $374,076.30 collected in October. Year-to-date, $1,698,773.80. Expenditures for October in that fund, $100,432.17. Year-to-date, $1,274,610.25. The stormwater management fund, operating revenues for October, $4,827.60, expenses $204,314.19. Year-to-date, we've collected $15,007.59 and expended $1,110,790.73. Any questions? Thank you.
Don't really have any questions, but I just noticed this report was a whole lot of red.
In the revenue side.
I know a lot of the revenue have a comment.
So yes, sir. That's not a good thing. Red's not good. Well, we're going to, hopefully that will reverse itself significantly in January and February. Thank you.
Next is an authorization to issue a purchase order in the amount of $57,189 to Vic Bailey Ford for the purchase of a Ford F-250 crew cab pickup truck on state contract for the fire department. Funds to come from lease purchase proceeds request from the fire department.
I make a motion that we approve this, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, my question applies not only to this one, but for the next 8 items, 1 through 9. Can any of this stuff be paid for out of the American Rescue money? I don't want to have to keep asking for each one of these, but
I suppose if we used part of the money that we identified as a revenue loss, which is the $1 million. But of course, I think I've pointed out to you before that we've identified the revenue loss as being hospitality tax. So I know that those funds would still have to fall under those rules.
okay. But other than that, none of this would apply, would qualify for one of the 7 different things.
That's
that
my
they allow.
opinion. That's
Okay.
correct.
But it would apply under the hospitality regulations, at least some of this would.
Potentially, if we could identify the tourism related component of any of this equipment.
Now, my other question here is and this also applies to some of the rest of the stuff, the funds to come from lease purchase proceeds, that tells you how it's financed, but it doesn't say really where the funding is coming from.
Right, so this is what you all approved at the last Finance Committee meeting. So we essentially closed on these loans in the amounts that we talked to you about at the last meeting. And so as we purchase these capital pieces of equipment, we actually draw funds down and then pay for that equipment. And then over a period of time, we pay the funds back.
Right, I understand that, but what pocket does the money come out of in each one of these, where it just says lease purchase proceeds, but,
So we have a line item in the budget that says debt service.
okay,
So that's where it would come from,
all right,
that annual debt payment. And I think this is semi-annual debt payment.
okay,
So there's money budgeted under debt service for this purpose.
okay. So basically it's out of the general fund.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any more discussion on the purchase of the 250 crew cab? If not, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Saying, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed
Aye.
likewise. Ayes carry.
Authorization to issue a purchase order in the amount of $62,394 to Vic Bailey Ford for the purchase of a Ford Expedition Max on state contract. Funds to come from lease purchase proceeds, and the request is from the fire department.
I'll make a motion. We approve that.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr.
Mr. Mayor, oh, go ahead, Walter.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I would, I'll vote yes on all of these, but I think that staff needs to look into whether or not any of this could be paid by hospitality money. And if it is, to take that out of the American Rescue money.
Okay, Walter, I think that's what they have done. Going over, Lisa has gone over that with me. And we, for us to be able to balance the budget that we got and what we're working with now, and to be able to use the American Rescue money for what we're using it for, and buy the stuff that the departments need. The only way we can figure out how to get the stuff they need, the departments need, which is as we go down this list, you'll see it's a lot of money, it was to do the lease purchasing.
Yeah, I'm not,
So if
Yeah.
we don't do the lease purchasing, it's not near enough money in the American Rescue money to buy this stuff. What else going lacking somewhere?
yeah, I'm not saying we shouldn't use the lease purchase. I'm just saying that if we can use American Rescue money to supplement, to characterize that as repayment for hospitality loss, that we keep the idea open that we can go ahead and apply that to some of these obligations instead of doing the lease purchase.
Because if I may, I know we're putting the cart before the horse because we're talking about American Rescues after this. But the staff has identified about $1 million in revenue loss, almost all from, if not all, from hospitality accommodations tax. What I believe has been proposed is to spend $900,000 on the Azalea Hut. Just as one council member, the things, the numbers 1 through 9 are to the nth degree a greater priority for me as a councilman than spending anything on the Azalea Hut, except maybe demolishing it.
We asked you all to come in and meet with us one-on-one where we could go through this thing.
I did. I've expressed it to our administrator.
And that's why we did that, where we could hear what you had to say. And I sat in on every meeting that everybody came in. Bill, I don't remember you coming in when I was there.
I met with the administrator, but of course, we don't vote in these meetings. We vote out here, and I'm
Right.
voting against spending money on the Azalea Hut.
We didn't vote in a
All right.
meeting. We just wanted to hear your thoughts.
We're hearing them.
Well, I didn't, by the way. Now I'm hearing them. I'm just saying the staff has worked very hard to try to make these things work. And they understand what you're saying. By far, they understand what you're saying. And we'll try our best to make it work. This was the best way they could find to make it work. And try to get through this thing and still accomplish all the things we want to accomplish this year with the department request that we have and the American Rescue money that we need to spend on stuff that we meet the requirements of the American Rescue qualifications that they tell us we got to use. Now, if y'all want to, let's have another workshop on that where you can help us understand better than what the staff we got understands how we supposed to spend that money. We need to do that.
I don't think we need a workshop. We just need a vote.
Sir?
I don't think we need a workshop. We just need to vote.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I would just like to point out that at the time I met with Lisa on this and went over the staff proposals, I didn't know that all of these things were going to be on the agenda for this meeting. That's why I'm asking the questions about that as agenda items.
Right.
I understand the limitations of the American Rescue. It has to fit into a particular slot for us to get the money and spend it. But if any of this stuff can be characterized as hospitality tax expenditures, then I think we ought to look at perhaps raising the $1 million that we're applying for the reimbursement to cover these items also. I'm just suggesting that.
Well, and I will tell you that once we get updated financials and we get through our audit reports, the loss of revenue could be more than $1 million. Right now, that's just what we can justify today. We've got a second tranche coming next year. So any revenue loss that we haven't absorbed in this tranche, we can certainly make up for in the second one.
Since COVID's still here, can we project the hospitality tax revenue loss into the future,
We can.
which would bump up the $1 million that we've already got? That's what I'm just trying to do, and we're not at that issue yet, but just to use that money for stuff that we really need to do for the town and not as kind of like free money that we're throwing around.
Mine is a far lesser question. I would just note that the request is for the fire department and not from the police department.
Yes, sir, that was a mistake.
Okay, do we have a motion and a second? Do we?
Yes, sir, we do.
We do? Okay, any more discussion? All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Voting aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes carry.
Authorization to issue a purchase order to Motorola Solutions for 14 mobile radios and accessories on state contract totaling $76,819.82. Funds to come from approved budgeted capital funds, and the request is from the police department.
Make a motion that we approve this, Mr. Mayor.
I'll second. Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor of this signify by raising right hands. Voting aye.
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 Opposed likewise. Ayes carry.
Authorization to issue a purchase order to Vic Bailey Ford in the amount of $62,673 for 2 Ford F-250s. Funds to come from lease purchase proceeds. This is on a state contract, and the request is from the Parks and Recreation Department.
Motion.
I'll make a motion. We approve that.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
I'll just state that 62,000 seems like an incredible deal for two F-250s when we just authorized the purchase of one for 57, but if that's not a typo, I'm for it.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Open the bills, which I kind of agree with. Any more discussion? All in favor of this, signify by raising right hand, saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes carry.
Authorization to issue a purchase order to Performance Automotive Group for 18 Dodge Durango police vehicles on state contract totaling $550,088. Funds to come from lease purchase proceeds. The request is from the police department.
I'll make a motion. We approve this, Mr. Mayor.
I'll second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of this, signify by raising your right hand. Voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes carry.
All right. Authorization to issue a purchase order to Motorola Solutions for 15 in-car radio systems on state contract totaling $38,560.18. Funds to come from lease purchase proceeds. Request from police department.
I'll make a motion that we approve this, Mr. Mayor.
I'll second. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
I just have a question. Are these for in the cars? Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed likewise. Ayes carry.
Authorization to issue a purchase order to Motorola Solutions for 15 mobile video recording devices and license keys on state contract totaling $79,100.25. Funds to come from lease purchase proceeds. Request from police department.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand and voting aye.
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 Opposed likewise. Ayes carry.
Authorization to issue a purchase order to West Chatham Warning Devices for police vehicle parts, labor, and installation for 18 Dodge Durangos totaling $167,981.40. This is on a state contract. Funds to come from lease purchase proceeds, and the request is from the police department.
I'll make this motion that we approve this, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of this, signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise.
I don't think so.
Authorization to issue a purchase order to Custom Signal Corporation for 15 speed measuring devices, 13 Golden Eagle 2 and 2 Golden Eagle 3, totaling $29,997.79. This is on state contract. Funds to come from lease purchase proceeds. Request from police department.
Make a motion, we approve that.
Second. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Not all in favor, signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
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 Opposed likewise. Ayes carry.
Authorization for the town administrator to enter into an agreement with Clemson University for Stormwater Consortium membership. Membership cost is $35,000 annually. Funds to come from Stormwater Fund, and the request is from the Public Works Department.
Mr. Mayor, can we get an explanation from staff as to this program?
Yes, sir. The town has always been a member of the consortium, and the consortium is basically two of the items we need to fulfill to adhere to our stormwater permit from DHEC. When Dorchester County was collecting stormwater fees from town residents, they covered this for us. When we dissolved that agreement with the county last year, this fell on the town to do. So that's why it's going to adjust this year.
Is Dorchester County, Berkeley County, and Charleston County also members of the
All
consortium?
three counties in the Tri-County area, every municipality that has a stormwater permit in the Tri-County area is a member of the consortium.
So every citizen and taxpayer in the town of Somerville is already paying taxes for this education, but because they live in town of Somerville, they're gonna pay a little more.
Well, every member of the consortium, every county, every municipality pays a fee.
Correct.
to do this.
So, if you're a resident of town of Somerville, you're either a Dorchester County resident, a Charleston County resident, or Berkeley County resident. And so all of our taxpayers have paid county taxes that contribute, just given $175,000 over 5 years to Clemson to be educated about stormwater issues. But now because they live in the town, we think that they should pay even more.
Well, they're already paying it. So they were paying Dorchester County stormwater fees of over $400,000 a year before, and now they're not paying that.
Well, they're paying county taxes.
Yeah, but this fund, this fee typically comes out of municipalities and county stormwater fees.
Is it a requirement to be a member of this consortium?
It's not a requirement. It's a lot of work they do for us to meet our requirements for the stormwater permit that we have to work under. There's 6 minimum control measures. The stormwater fee, the stormwater permit has 2 of them are public education, public outreach. That's what Clemson would do for us. And the staff handles the other 4 items.
So if we don't pay Clemson to do it, then we have to do it.
Yes, sir.
We have to, despite the fact that there's these forums are going on regardless.
The what? The form?
These forums and these public education, I mean, Clemson's doing this work.
Right.
In the Tri-County area, and they're getting paid by Dorchester County, Berkeley County, and Charleston County to put them on. But if we don't join this consortium, then we can't issue permits.
We don't get credit for the work in our permit. So when we're audited by DHEC every permit cycle, they go through all 6 items, and this kind of checks the box for keeping compliance with our permit for public education, public outreach.
It seems to me like this is a lot of money to pay over a period of time, $175,000 for 5 years to raise awareness among the public. I mean, I don't see how this is directly helping the town do its job as far as stormwater. And my guess is going to be when they have these sessions, nobody can show up. It isn't a really hot topic where somebody's going to want to come there and listen to somebody talking about drainage issues in general. I mean, I understand that we might have to do something. I'm not sure that this is what we've got to do. I'm really hesitant to approve that amount of money to raise awareness. That doesn't really accomplish anything.
The fees based on population. So every municipality and county has a different fee based on their population. I don't know what the formula is.
Right, but again, I'm not satisfied that we have to do this. I mean, is there another alternative to check that box off?
We would have to do it in-house, and I would probably ask for another staff member to do that.
To just have some meetings to
It's more to it than have a couple meetings. I can share the annual report we get from Clemson about what they do as a region. If you want to see that.
is every municipality in every county in the state having to sign on to this?
Yes, sir. Clemson has consortiums around the state in different regions. And most municipalities I'm aware of and counties are members of whatever the local consortium is.
Russ, let me ask you one question. If we join this and the following year or 2 or 3 years down the road, we decided we don't want to do this, can we just pull out and quit the program?
This has to be, funding has to be approved annually, so we could, yes, or not, decide not to rejoin.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, it's a 5-year contract, and then there's a option to mutually go forward for another couple of years, but I don't see any way to cut this one short unless I misread it.
I think there's an exit clause in the contract too, if one of us chooses not to go forward.
Well, I'd like to say this. I know in my district, we're having some serious stormwater problems, and the mayor and I have spent a lot of time over there and Russ trying to solve some of these problems. I mean, $35,000 would seem like a lot of money, but if you look at our population size, and as we grow and as we cut trees, we're creating additional stormwater problems. And so a little education might go a long way to helping the citizens understand how they can contribute to reducing or mitigating the problems with stormwater. As we have a lot of calls to the Public Works Department about stormwater. We're spending a lot of money trying to cure some things that maybe a little education in the past may have helped us to avoid spending that money. So I think it's something that's worthwhile. If we could try it a year or two or three and see what happens. That's why I ask, if we in there for a while, and we decide to pull out, can we just pull out?
I don't see an exit clause in here for the first 5 years.
Thought there was.
So we if we approve it, we're signing off for 175,000.
Is there another group out there that offers the same type of service?
We could hire a consultant to do it for us, but there's no other public group or government agency that I'm aware of that does it for us. So we would have to hire additional staff or hire a consultant or go with Clemson, kind of our choices.
The past things that we've done with some of our flooding issues and things like that, have they helped us with some of those, with
They're more of
plans
a-
or?
Bring awareness to water quality. They work with HOAs on pond management, their retention pond management. They do the billboard radio ads about water quality. They basically don't dump bad stuff in your storm drain. That's what their purpose is a public education outreach program.
I guess what confuses me is why, if we are not in it, why would we not be included in Dorchester County's part of it? I mean,
Because we dissolved our agreement with them last year when they were collecting stormwater fees. They were paying this fee for us before.
Which is why none of us knew we were in we've been in this consortium for years and nobody on this dais knew that.
Yeah, I think council in 2008 is when we started the consortium, and we just
Well,
continued it
that's-
since then.
And the Mr. Brown knew.
You guys, Mr. Brown went to meet when the consortium began.
Russ, what is it that requires us to do this? What agency?
DHEC issues us a stormwater permit we have to operate under. There's 6 minimum control measures. The first 2 is public education, public outreach. The third one is basically stormwater permitting, which we review plans and permit sites, make sure they adhere to the stormwater regulations. The third one is, fourth one is stormwater inspections. We have to inspect every site while it's under construction on a monthly basis.
Yeah, but as far as the educational thing, the raising awareness, do they specify that you have to do all of this stuff that Clemson's doing? Or they just say you have to have a program to raise
We
public
have a
awareness?
program to do it. Yes, sir.
Could that program consist of one annual meeting?
Maybe a website and an annual
I
meeting.
don't know the details what the program will. I have to read the permit and see what the permit language is.
Well, when do we have to vote on this? I mean, is it something we have to do tonight?
We don't. I'd like to, but we don't.
Could we find out so we know what we have to do?
Yes, sir. I can look into that for us.
Okay. Well, I move we continue it until next month.
I'll second.
And I'd just like to say, like we've talked about before, the retention ponds. We need a plan for that. We don't have one, and many of them in my area are full. And we need to come up a way that we can finance and get paid back to get those empty.
But this doesn't do that. This just,
Well, I know it's a management thing, but when it came in, and I haven't really seen any education.
Yeah.
I mean, myself.
yeah, we've been paying for it all this time and I hadn't seen it.
Yeah, the education I get on it's through ASRAC watching the Ashley River and going to their meetings. You learn a lot.
What was your motion, Mulder?
To postpone this from next month.
Postpone in a month?
Yes.
Okay, in a second. Okay, we got a motion on the floor to postpone it for a month and a second. Any more discussion on it? If not, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand, saying aye.
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 Opposed, likewise, ayes carried.
Authorization to surplus and sell the following vehicles from the Streets Department: a 1998 Chevrolet C 8500 debris truck S81, 1999 Chevrolet C 8500 debris truck S90, 1998 International 4900 dump truck S89, and a 2007 Freightliner M2 106 leaf vacuum truck S99.
Mr. Mayor, seeing how every single one of these vehicles, for the first time ever, is older than the car I drive, I'll move authorization to surplus.
Second.
Okay, motion on the floor in a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of this, signify by raising your right hand, saying aye.
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 Opposed, likewise.
Discussion of proposed uses of American Rescue Plan funds.
Mr. Mayor, this is the spreadsheet that I sent to you all on Friday, and we've had one-on-one discussions with you all. Of course, you participated in those discussions. I'm certainly glad to go over this one by one, or if you have any specific questions. I would like to point out that we have Brian Haver from Dorchester County, and also Joe Friday, who is the chairman of the Dorchester County Community Outreach here, to answer any specific questions you might have about the homeless shelter.
I was just curious on the premium pay for essential workers. What happens with that?
So what this proposal has, we've identified really all of the town employees as essential workers. But what we've done is we've separated what we're calling our frontline employees. That would include our public safety personnel, police, fire. We also have our stormwater, street department, parks department folks that all would be considered our frontline personnel. So this premium proposal would provide a one-time bonus for those employees of $4,000. And for the remaining employees, which I guess you'd consider more of the office workers, would get a one-time bonus of $2,500.
I just wasn't sure if it was a reimbursement for what we already paid out or we'll be paying it out.
Right. So there was some emergency pay money that was, I guess, back in 2020, there was a $300 per week emergency pay plan, but that was for a very short window. That we did request reimbursement from the CARES Act. So we have requested reimbursement. This is coming from the American Rescue Plan money that we actually have those funds in the bank right now.
When will we know whether the CARES Act requests will be fulfilled?
We did get 2 reimbursements from the CARES Act. We've just got to dig through and find out exactly what that covered. So, but we did get two checks from them,
Well,
so to speak.
I just personally, I would think this, in my view, this 1.3 in premium pay is probably the least controversial thing on the list. And I want to support it, but I do want to make sure that whether it's the CARES Act or whether it's American Rescue Plan, that we reimburse ourselves for what we've already done as far as emergency pay.
I agree that we should do that.
So what I'm hearing, you want verification that we did get reimbursed from the CARES Act for the initial emergency pay. And then for this that we have here, the premium pay, which is coming from funds that we actually already have. So there wouldn't be a reimbursement. It's just being funded out of the first tranche.
Okay.
Were
I
there
think
any
at
other?
this time, we ought to be able to give, because we got another check coming, that we ought to be able to go ahead and give our employees that Lisa described their bonus that she's recommended, the staff has recommended the $4,000 and the $2,500.
And Mr. Mayor, I don't know if it's more appropriate here or for item 8 on our agenda, discussion of proposed upcoming council agenda items. But I would request that this specific issue, premium pay for essential workers, the $1.3 million allocation be put on Wednesday night's agenda. I mean, we can't vote on it now because it's not on the only thing that's on the agenda is discussion of proposed uses. So
That's fine. We can put it
I
on.
would just
I mean,
ask that this
I don't-
1.3 million be
Yeah.
placed on Wednesday's night's
I
agenda.
don't have a problem with putting it on Wednesday night's agenda. Second.
I don't know if it needs a motion. I just.
You make a motion,
That's-
Bill?
Yeah. I think it's done.
All right, we'll put that on Wednesday night's agenda. We don't need to vote on that. Okay.
Did you all have any other questions about any of these? other
Can we
items?
just go through them one at a time? I know we've
Sure.
all had the meetings with you, but just for the sake of the public and refresh our memory and all.
Sure. So of course, the first line, that's the first distribution we received from the American Rescue Plan. We anticipate receiving another 3.8 million 12 months from now. The first task you all asked us to do was to identify the revenue loss that we've experienced. We felt comfortable plugging in that $1 million figure. As I mentioned to you before, that we feel is primarily from hospitality tax. So that's what that 1 million is for. The premium pay, we've discussed that. The homeless shelter partnership with Dorchester County and Dorchester County Community Outreach. This is a request we received from Dorchester County. It's my understanding that there is a plan in works for a $4.6 million project. And the county has actually authorized, I believe, 1.255 million toward this project. And so they're asking us to participate. And I understand that this is would include a men's shelter, an expansion of the women's shelter, and a warming and cooling area, and sort of a day area for these folks. The next item is home repairs and renovation for LMI communities. This is something we've talked about for a period of time. Now, what we would like to do, and of course this would come back to you, is to potentially contract with Habitat for Humanity or some other organization that has the structure in place that would be able to manage this kind of a program. So even if you all today said, okay, we'll designate $100,000 to this program, it would still come back to you in the form of an MOU or a contract at some point to be able to manage it. The facade improvement for the downtown merchants. This is again something that we've been talking about for quite some time. I understand that Somerville Dream probably has an appropriate application process in place. So again, this is something that would come back to you either as a program that would be managed by Dream or an in-house program managed by our Economic Development Office. The mental health crisis intervention. This is something that was requested by our police department. And we believe that this amount here, the 526,000, could fund 2 police officers and a clinician. And of course, if this program is going well, once we receive the second tranche of funds, we can certainly fund those 3 positions for another 2 years. So obviously at some point we'd have to absorb those employees, but this would at least give us a funding source for 4 to 5 years. The wayfinding signs, that is something that we actually reduced out of our hospitality tax budget. We left $54,000 in there to at least get started on that project, but we feel like that this was an eligible expense under the American Rescue Plan. So we plugged that 200,000 back in there, which of course would free up the 54,000 that we left in hospitality tax. And the last item, the workforce housing program, that's something we have, or that you all have discussed for quite a while now. The 125,000 we've just got sort of designated for that program. I know that what we would need initially is a needs assessment, which I estimate would be about 25 to 30,000 to get that needs assessment. That's something we would need initially, and then that would leave some program money to implement whatever came out of the needs assessment. So that essentially spends $3.8 million. And again, most of this will have to come back to you in some form or fashion before it's actually implemented, but this will at least designate funds for these specific projects.
I think I mentioned this earlier, but I think I asked you whether or not we could project our losses between now and the time we get our second payment. In what, a year?
Yes, and we can, I mean, we can just extrapolate the numbers that we've already taken and move them forward is what we can.
Yeah, I would like to see us do that in lieu of some of the payments to outside agencies. We don't know where we are as far as our audit, but that's going to show. And I think the more money we can get back into our budget, the better off we're going to be till we know where we are financially.
Looking at the top issue, the 1 million reduction in revenues identified, and then looking over on the right side, premium pay not covered under American Rescue Plan is 96,000. I'm obviously in favor of that. The Cuthbert Community Center, so like when I got that email on Friday was the first time I ever heard anything about us doing anything at the Cuthbert Community Center, or Azalea Hut, I think as most people call it. I would think that a much greater priority, I understand that we've already taken down, we've approved the lease purchases in our budget. We've taken down the money. We have it in our account, if I'm understanding Ms. Wallace correctly, and we've now authorized those purchases. I would much rather, to the extent that the hospitality and accommodations taxes, that those restrictions and guidelines would apply, that after we pay the 96,000 in premium pay not covered under American Rescue Plan, that we use as much of the remaining $903,241 as we can to pay ourselves back and get out of those lease purchases that we just authorized. It just seemed to be a much greater need than spending $900,000 on the Azalea Hut.
As far as some of the other items on here, just since we're in discussion, I'll just give you my thoughts on it. The premium pay for essential workers, I'm fine with that. I do have some concerns with the location of the proposed homeless shelter. It's the old Bombadil's nursery, and that's adjacent to a lot of residential housing that happens to be in my council district, and I'm not sure that's the appropriate location for that particular project. I have a problem also with the home repairs and weatherization. As I understand it, that's for roof repairs that we'd pay for private housing. Is that correct, Lisa? Yeah, I think government has a certain function, but I think that citizens have an obligation to kind of take care of themselves and to spend money on their own houses, their own food, and their own transportation. I don't think the government should be coming in writing people checks to repair private homes. I'm just philosophically opposed to that. Same with the facade improvements. Again, these are private businesses that presumably make some money because they're still in business, and if they want facades, facade improvements, they need to go ahead and pay for it themselves. The workforce housing program, I think that involves helping people pay their down payments to purchase houses. Again, I don't think that's an appropriate function of the government to pay somebody to buy a house. I mean, I think everybody in this room that has a house paid for it, and the government didn't write them a check. Again, I think all of this outside money should be worked into our budget, because I think we're in dire straits now without having an audit to know where we are financially.
I would philosophically, I would agree with everything you just said, Councilman Bailey. I am very concerned about the lack of an audit. I don't philosophically really disagree with anything you just said. When I look at 100,000 for home repairs and weatherization, 125,000 for workforce housing, 100,000 for facade improvements, I'm not going to stay awake at night if we end up approving those things. But I understand it's a slippery slope sometimes when you get into the business, when government gets itself into the business of doing things that it's never done before. The two remaining items, though, that really jump out at me, one I'm very much in favor of, and the other one I have serious reservations about. The one that I'm very much in favor of is the mental health crisis intervention expenditures. I think that's a very necessary thing for our town, for our police department. The folks that we will be hiring, if we approve this, will play an extraordinarily vital role for our town and for our town government. So I'm completely in support of that. The $500,000 gift to Dorchester County to purchase land at the old Bombadils is just about 3 bridges too far from me. The homeless shelters now exist is on the outside of my district. I voted to rezone it to allow the women's shelter there over the objection of a number of residents that were friends of mine. Some of them had been former constituents. I think they were all Councilman Brown's constituents by the time we voted on it. But the issue with that was property rights. We had an owner of property that was wishing to downzone her property so she could sell it to the person she wanted to sell it to. Actually, she wanted to upzone her property, had more restrictions on the property in order to sell it for less money to the people that she wanted to sell it to, which was Dorchester County Community. I probably have the acronym wrong. I completely supported that as a property rights matter. This is completely different. I think it's a terrible location on Miles Jamison. It's not our program. We have no control over it. It's an unincorporated Dorchester County, but it's across the street, essentially from town residents, as Councilman Bailey said, that on the other side of Miles Jamison about 6 months ago, I think we voted unanimously to vote down a proposed workforce senior housing apartment complex that was going to be, it was a for-profit company. It was revenue generating. It was to provide more affordable housing for people with jobs. And, it was overwhelmingly opposed by town residents in Twin Oaks and Oaknaw, and we voted it down. But now we have no control over this. It's not in the town. We don't own it. We don't have anything to do with it. But the folks in Oaknaw and Twin Oaks are now going to be faced with instead of that, which would be much more desirable than this, they'll have apparently up to a campus of up to 160 people, if I'm reading it correct, on the other side of the street. So, I mean, if that's what Dorchester County wants to do, and they're going to zone it the way it needs to be, and they're going to spend $1 million, I mean, that's their choice. That's their policy choice. And, County Councilman Jennis or his successor can explain that to their constituents in Twin Oaks and Oaknaw, and Councilman Bailey or Councilman-elect Touchberry won't have to.
I do have one question. I know we've had problems over the last several years with the Cuthbert Center Foundation. What's approximately what we've been putting into it each year with some of the things that are failing? Does anybody know?
I'm not sure we have the answer to that, but it's certainly something that we can get for you.
Okay.
And I think, again, this was an effort to just sort of show you some ways that you could spend this money. Certainly, I think there's a lot more discussion that needs to be had about Cuthbert Community Center, to decide whether or not we want to completely tear down the structure, start from scratch, or if, we just want to do some repairs and renovations to the current structure. So this was just, again, showing you some ways that you could spend the money.
Mr. Mayor, I would request that the authorization of allocation of $526,641 for the mental health crisis intervention be placed on Wednesday night's agenda.
And I'll second that.
That's your motion, Bill.
It's just a request. I think it's automatic
Two voices
if two
to it.
people request it.
So we'll add those to Wednesday night's agenda.
I would just like to remind the council that, the authorized expenditures to respond to public health emergencies and negative economic impacts, provision of government services to the extent of reduction in revenues, premiums paid for essential workers, investment in water, sewage, and broadband, general eligible uses related to service for low and income residents. Now, I do think that the Cuthbert Center needs to be remodeled. I also think that the mere $100,000 is being offered for in this proposal for home repair and weatherization and low and moderate income community is just a mere pittance. We've been getting some help from some of the churches. And now we have an opportunity for the town to step in and add a little bit of money to what's being used to help these people have a comfortable place to live. Also, we talk about the facade improvements grants for the downtown merchants. I think that's something that the town can also do to help these downtown merchants. So I think we need to use this money to help the small businesses, people with home repair, workforce housing, and things that are essential for the town. I think we have to remember that the town is not a one or two tracked organization. We have a lot of responsibilities to a lot of people in this town. And I think whenever this is windfall money that we have gotten that we could use outside of our normal budget to achieve some of these things. And as the town grows, the problems of the towns grow. And we have got to start looking at some of these things, because if we don't, then we could end up with a lot of problems that we're not addressing right now. Maybe this is just a start to get us where we want to be. The Cuthbert Center is certainly needs improvement. I agree with that. That's something that we need to do. We want Somerville to be a town that looks into all of the needs that we have. We've got different buckets of money, of course, and we've got different problems. But we cannot just pick out a couple of things that we think that we can do to address certain needs and leave the rest of it on the table. That just doesn't work for a city.
I think Mr. Brown accurately described this as a windfall, and it is a windfall to the town, but it is real money that the government doesn't have money unless they extract it out of the taxpayers. So somebody had to earn all of this money. And now we're going to facilitate taking money somebody earned and giving it to somebody that didn't earn it so they can do work to their house. I'd rather see the tax money kept in the hands of the people that earned it so they can repair their houses and not somebody else's.
For a rebuttal to that, Mr. Bailey, everybody pays taxes. Certainly, some people pay more than others, but everybody pays taxes. They're paying, consumer taxes, they're paying property taxes, they're paying sales taxes. So everybody pays taxes. I think sometimes we forget that lower income people pay taxes too. And if we do something like helping them improve the value of their home, then they end up paying more taxes. Their property taxes go up and they pay taxes for a long time. So I just want us to be a little bit more egalitarian in our thinking about the people in Somerville and just not exclude a whole host of people in this town that can use some of the money that they've paid to government to get some of that money back to improve their lives. So it's not, the government doesn't have any money. The government receives taxes from all people, regardless of their walk of life. And so this program is designed to give back. And we're not excluding the people who are middle class or upper echelon, but at the same time, we're looking out for those who are downtrodden and need some help. And, we've got some people here tonight just talking about the need for the homeless shelter. That's a very important entity that we need here in the town of Somerville. What we have is inadequate. It's not big enough. And so I think we have to plan for these things as the town grow. We have got to be thinking about all the entities that we have to deal with in this town. If we narrow our scope, I think we will fail as a town in our mission to take care of the people.
Can I ask a question of the people that are here from Dorchester County on the homeless shelter? That's a good question. My question is, the present location of the men's shelter, is there not enough space there to add on to that, either up or outward?
The current location of the men's shelter is a leased property, and the owners are not interested in maintaining a long-term lease at that site. So we're looking for another site for the men's shelter. We're also looking at the ability to expand the women's shelter, and then we're looking at the ability to move the women's shelter to handle women and children. That's what we're trying to do in the project.
There's a kind of two-edged sword with this, regardless of how one feels about what we're doing. One is, in my mind, at any rate, in the town of Somerville, if to support this center, I would say that there's a group of people, what a percentage of 100, I don't know, that say that's great, but it needs to be close enough to the town of Somerville to be of value to the town of Somerville, to be of value to the police department, so that we're not crossing the swamp, so to speak, to get there. The other part is where it is currently located, which is not, in my mind, one of the most advantageous spots we could find. I wasn't in the search, so I don't know what all has been involved in that. I'm not opposed to the helping of the funding, which I think that we should be involved in, but I believe we just have got to find a place that is not on one of the most heavily traveled roads, not right in the middle of several subdivisions that are straight directly across the street from them. I think if we can solve that logistical problem of where another piece of property might be, that at least from this council person, there's going to be a positive response.
That's been a very difficult search that we've done. We've worked with several real estate agents to try to find locations that would be good for a homeless shelter in close enough that we can serve the people here, but also be able to zone and so forth the property there. That's very difficult to find property that meets those needs.
Questions for these gentlemen?
Any more questions for
I-
these guys from the county?
Yeah, I just had a thought that we could look at, we have property in Lincolnville. It's basically surrounded by municipal facilities. We have no use for it. Because I've tried to find one for a long time.
It might technically be in Charleston County, but Dorchester County has brought property from Charleston County to build subdivisions. So you could bring property from Charleston County into Dorchester County if it's contiguous to build a homeless shelter. But again, this is the county's project. It's not ours. They're not asking for our participation. They're asking for our money.
I was just thinking of a site central, but still kind of isolated.
Be happy to look at that.
Could be a double blessing.
Thank you.
I have a question for our administrator. As part of this American Rescue Plan, do we at some point have to approve a budget or approve a plan to be submitted to some federal agency?
They do require annual reports, or maybe it's even quarterly reports. But that quarterly report could just simply say we haven't decided yet.
Okay.
I do believe the funds have to be spent by December 31st, 2026. Is that correct, Dan? Okay. So committed by end of 2024 and then spent by the end of 2026.
Because my suggestion anyway, going forward is that we've agreed to put two of these items on Wednesday night's agenda. And I think they come out to about 1.9 million, which would leave 2 million. Assuming, I don't want to assume anything, but assuming Wednesday night we approve those expenditures, that would leave $2 million. I just wonder if it would be useful for at that point, assuming that happens for the sake of argument Wednesday night, for after getting all of these comments from all of us, if staff would consider going back and kind of tweaking this plan for the remaining 2 million, presuming that we approve 1.9 Wednesday night.
Certainly, yeah. Again, I think this was really just a starting point to have these discussions. That was always the intent in bringing you this budget, this proposed budget, was to give you all sort of a starting point for discussion. So yes, we can certainly do that.
Okay, anything else on that item?
Authorize the mayor or town administrator to execute a grant agreement in the amount of $2,820,851 from the SC Department of Commerce for the Maple Street Improvement Project.
I'll make a motion that we approve this, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
I'll third and say this may be the easiest vote any of us have ever taken.
Any discussion? All in favor of this, signify by raising your
Let me
right
ask one
hand, saying
question.
aye.
One question, please, Mr. Mayor. Russ, if we got this money, how far will it go on the Maple Street completion, and how long will it take once we've got the money and we can apply it?
Well, this will cover the budget. The estimate for construction of Maple Street is $12 million. This will cover a little over 10% of it. The balance of that 12 million will be coming out of the TIF. I think that's forthcoming in the next couple of months. So once that is in place, the funding will be in place and we can bid the project for construction.
Thank you, sir.
Ready to vote now? Okay, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes carried.
Discussion of Shoemaker Development Agreement.
I just wanted to briefly introduce this. I know I sent an email to y'all at the end of last week, kind of updating you on where Lisa and I stood with the discussions with the Shoemaker County representatives. So I sent you the revised kind of conceptual plan and also the revised fiscal impact analysis that shows the town park is how it's currently labeled up at Dorchester Road, plus or minus 11 acres. That changes. The commercial area did stay the same. It does change the residential count slightly to 176 single-family residences, detached residences, and 157 townhomes. When you look at the fiscal analysis as they've currently submitted it, it basically there's a deficit of $217,212 at year 20 with the most conservative estimate. And that's not taking into account basically the value of the land they would be giving us either. So I know, obviously, y'all would like to have some discussion on this, and that's why it's on your agenda so that all of council could discuss it. And also just wanted to let you know that George and Chris are here representing the applicants if you have any specific questions of them. Or if you have questions for me as well, I can answer those too.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, we're getting ready to go into executive session, and could we move this item to executive session with the other items that are received legal advice on the Shoemaker development agreement?
I'll second that if that's a motion.
Are you making that as a motion? Yeah,
Well, I was asking if I could first, and if I can, yes, it's a
Well,
motion.
when you say can be, I got to look over at the lawyer over there to make sure that's okay.
Mr. Mayor, it's my position that any council member can ask to go into the executive session to receive legal advice on any matter. Just you can't take action in executive.
Okay.
And that is my motion.
Okay, Walter second it. Any discussion? All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carry.
Mr. Mayor, just for the record, I'm abstaining from any and all votes regarding this project.
Do we also need a motion to go into executive session to discuss these other items?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes carry.